Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me from Saturday Down South, it's Ethan Stone. Ethan, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. National championships on tonight, so I'm always going to be doing great. I'm ready to obviously talk some Tennessee basketball and anything else we get up to.
Yeah, we're going to dive into spring practice or spring scrimmage number 2 here in full detail that took place this morning, and the unrelenting cold here, that the cold front that is weeding its way through East Tennessee. Just suspiciously close to my birthday week, which I don't know. It makes you raise an eyebrow at just the developments here in East Tennessee, but also here, Rocky Top Insider Zone, and noted capital S sports fan Ryan Schumpert. Ryan, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. Glad to be on here. Yeah, we went from such a radical, it was so hot over the weekend, to now being full cold again. So let's find that middle ground. You know, we just skipped straight from the mid 80s to the mid 50s. Why don't we get some mid 60s or mid 70s? That would be nice. Yeah,
I want to put away the sweatshirts. Like, I'm ready to move on. Like, it's just like I'm okay with winter when it's January. Folks, it's mid-April. Like, it's time for the change. It's time for
early April.
Well, I guess that's probably my 34th birthday is next week. Does that make me mid 30s or am I still early 30s?
Yeah, you can go either way. I would say mid, but you can go either way.
I think it's acceptable to say early. It's not insane.
Okay,
Maybe
it's not like 5'10".
Yeah,
like I'm almost 6 feet.
But like 34, you can get away with it.
Yeah, I agree with what Ethan said.
Okay. I don't know if I want to say mid 30s. I kind of like saying mid 30s though. I don't know why that is, but I like mid 30s more. It's very distinguished, like mid 30s. It's crazy to say that out loud though. Like, never thought just young Chase hearing mid 30s out loud is quickly coming down the pike is absolutely wild.
You're old.
Yeah.
I could never for the next 8 years at least.
Thanks, Ryan. Just always there for the empathy on this very program. Well, fellas, we have some Tennessee, in all seriousness, we have some Tennessee hoops we are going to talk about here on this edition of the program. A lot of portal movement since our last show last Monday night. And as of this recording, no new developments with the dead period going on. Hopefully, no new developments, at least here for the next couple hours. And a longtime fan of the show, Rick Barnes and company, if they could hold off here for at least 24 hours to keep this timely, that would be ideal. But Jacoby Gillespie and Jaylen Carey are in the boat here to very different kinds of transfers for Tennessee. One, a big from Vanderbilt to followed Byington from James Madison to Vanderbilt, and played really well against Tennessee and caused a couple kerfuffles. I think was Zakai, if I remember correctly, and company. Felix. But
Felix too.
And Felix too, yeah. And then you have Jacoby Gillespie, Greenville native, Mr. Tennessee, who could have 2 years of eligibility depending on what happens with the ruling over the next couple months, but a plug and play 40% 3-point shooter, and on, I think by all accounts, the best possible. Like, you're still replacing a legend, Zakai Ziegler, but if you're trying to find someone who you could plug and play and not have a big drop off from one guy to the next, Gillespie is one of the best possible options here for Rick Barnes and company to keep this thing humming in 25 and 26. What do you make of the two additions here, Ethan Stone?
Yeah, I think you did a good job introducing him, especially with Gillespie. I'd say, as far as that was going to be my main point. If you're losing Zakai, obviously there's not going to be much replacing Zakai Ziegler and what he was able to give you on both ends of the court, but Gillespie's a good place to start. It's definitely a good place to begin building a new team that's going to be missing a good chunk of its scoring and production from last season. Gillespie, I think an underrated defender as well. I would add that to everything you said. He's not going to bring you what Zakai did, but he is a little taller, so he can maybe contend with those situations that Zakai quite couldn't, just because there's a natural height disadvantage. It excites me how well of a shooter he is. I mean, he does a really good job of getting other people involved as well. I believe he averaged just under 5 assists per game So he's got the playmaking element. He likes to drive to the hoop. He's got a lot of the similar characteristics to kind of how Zakai wants to score, and I think that matches with what Barnes is going to want to do very well. And I think there's still going to be a lob threat to Felix available next season as well. So a lot of reasons to be excited. I think the 3-point shooting, chief among which you're going to get a solid 3-point shooter proven in Big Ten play. Obviously, a third team, all Big Ten member. So the guy's played against the very best of the best, and he's excelled against it, and he's done it at a very high clip, high efficiency wise. So I don't think you can really get much better there. As far as Carey's concerned, I mean, he's first or second best offensive player that they've got on their front court right now, at least that Tennessee does. His 3-point numbers aren't fantastic, but in conference play, he was shooting just above 30%. So that's as much as you can want to he can still stretch the floor a little bit and just to move some players around. Obviously, a big body down low. He's going to give you a lot inside that Tennessee just didn't quite have, but a little bit of foul trouble as well. So I wonder what his production is going to be going up against Cade and against obviously the rest of Tennessee's front court next season.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, I think I dropped in the group chat when it happened was like, I think, and I think you agree with me here on this particular point of that Barnes is building back what he doesn't want a repeat of last year where they got super thin on inside, where it was just they had to play Cade a lot, who was good in moments, but it was still just like you were stretched thin, where Cade had to be your backup 5, and there were instances where Tennessee did not have the interior presence that I think Rick likes. I think he likes what you had 2 years ago, where you have a lot of different combinations with Adu and Awaka and JP and different dudes. Like, I think he is someone who would rather have more depth inside and be a little bit thinner at the wing and guard spot, because I think he wants to play those guys like Jacoby Gillespie. I think he wants to play a bunch of minutes next year. I think Gillespie talked about it. He's handing the keys to him here in 25, 26. And if you add, let's say, a Rodney Rice, and you, I don't know what, if you will have one other guy maybe, but I think it's a situation where you could see there's a lot more healthy rotation at the big spot and pretty thin at guard / on the wing again, and they just go high minutes. And I feel like that's where Barnes is more comfortable. Do you agree? And what do you make of the two additions?
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think that's absolutely right. I would even go a step further. I mean, you said 23, 24. I think it's further than that. I think you're talking 22, 23 rotation, or 21, 22, where 23, 24, you really just kind of had 3 centers. Tobe was a little bit more of a power forward. Where this year, to me, it feels like you do have 2 definitive centers in Felix and JP, and then 2 definitive 4 men who can play some 5, are capable. As obviously, we saw Cade do it a lot this year, and Carey had to do it at Vanderbilt because of the lack of size they had. So I completely agree with that. I think you're going to see Tennessee play more 2 bigs than they have in a number of years, probably since 23. Gillespie, I mean, it's a huge get, a guy that they really needed to land. You needed a lead guard, particularly a point guard that is really high level, is going to be an all SEC type guy if you're going to talk about Tennessee competing and to try to be a top 4 team in the conference again. And I think Gillespie's just that. To Ethan's point, I liked it about the defense. Talked to somebody that good basketball mind who's very familiar with Gillespie at Belmont, and said he was, at that level and just an absolutely elite on-ball defender. I'm sure a step down in the Big Ten and the SEC, but was still good there. And the thing he said is that sometimes he could be, have some lapses off ball, but I think that's something that Rick Barnes is going to get fixed in a hurry, and or at least he'll be on him about it if he has many. And then on the point guard side of it, he was really more of a combo guard at Belmont, and that's something that Gillespie talked to me in my conversation with him, is that he feels like he's still really growing as an actual point guard, and I think that's where Rick Barnes will be good for him, and certainly he'll be really good for Tennessee. So the shooting is really exciting. I think he hit the most threes in the Big Ten last season, if I'm not mistaken, or it might have just been Big Ten games that he did that in, and he did it at a really efficient clip. Carey, I think, is more interesting just from a pure roster construction standpoint. What he brings Tennessee this year, I think, is rebounding toughness. I have a really hard time thinking Tennessee's not going to be a really good a really good rebounding team just with the construction of the roster. And I think the Carey thing, and look, you got to keep him. Obviously, he's been at 3 schools in 3 years, but talk about a guy that has at least 2 years to play and could easily be 3. I think he has a really high ceiling. So that part, I think, down the road is really exciting to me for what he could do, because he had some flashes of Vanderbilt where he was one of their best players this season, despite the fact that he was coming off the bench.
I think that's fair. Ethan, when we talk about the combo with these guys, like I think that's what's interesting, is like part of what's interesting about this era of college hoops is that an addition like Carey, if you didn't have the portal, you'd be like, oh, obvious need. Like obvious, yeah, awesome. Where this is a position of strength again, where you're going to have JP, Cade, Felix, and Carey. Where that's just like, that's going to be a pain. Like I'm just going to go ahead and say apologies to everyone on the Tennessee 2025-2026 schedule inside, because you're going to get bodied. Yeah, like it's going to be physical. Tennessee is, like Ryan said, they're going to play a bunch of 2 big lineups again, and they're going to hurt people inside. It's just going to be, it's going to be aggressive, and it's going to be intense. And that's just some classic vintage Rick Barnes Tennessee style. But your immediate thought when you add Carey is like, question mark, because what does this mean for Cade or JP? Like Felix, it seemed like it would be less of a big deal, but you're like, there's only so many minutes to go around, that I immediately was like, interesting. Like this is an interesting thing for Tennessee to add to the mix when you were going to potentially bring back these 3, and then you also have Dwayne Brown coming in from Hoover, so it's like that's 5 bigs, and even if you plan to redshirt Brown, and he's not he's okay with not being a factor this year potentially, then that's still 5 though. Like things can change, like we saw this past year. That can change in a hurry, where you're like, we would like to do, but Tennessee would have liked to keep Jackson Moy out of the rotation, right? Like, wasn't that the story? Like they wanted to redshirt him in the interior last year. And it was like, he's too good, so he had to play. And you burn the redshirt, now he's going to start. That could be the same thing. Like you just never know with injuries and how crazy the season can go. So you want more depth than not. But when you saw Carey and you think about what this room now looks like, what do you make of that combination? And do you think it's feasible for all 4 to kind of thrive and flourish with one another?
I think it's feasible. Interestingly, one of the first things I noticed when I was doing a little bit of research into Carey just in general, because I mean, outside of those 2 games at Tennessee, I just didn't really know that much about him. I knew that he dominated against the Vols, but what else is there? And I mean, funnily enough, I'd say both games against Tennessee were 2 of his better games of the season, at least 2 top 5. But anyway, the thing I noticed is that he and Cade both have a high propensity for fouling, like a very, very high, especially Carey, I'd say, because he didn't play as many minutes. And I think that's a big reason why towards the end of the year, you kind of saw his production falling off, because he just couldn't stay on the court. He fouled out of that Tennessee game. I believe he fouled out at 2 others.
There's a little bit of Tobe in his game.
Definitely. I mean, I guess you got to take the good with the bad there, because he's an elite offensive rebounder, especially, and he's obviously a great rebounder as well. Just standing at 6'8". It's what Chase said earlier. He's going to be very physical with you, and I think he gives you a level more than Cade would. No disrespect to Cade, he's just a bigger body down there, and Cade has kind of that high propensity for fouling as well. So I definitely think there's going to be enough of a rotation for them, if not just based on Burns' system, based on just the flow of the game, just kind of how it's going to go, because that's how Tennessee's going to play. They're going to do a lot of, banging around in the post, and they're going to beat you up, and they're going to go and get the ball. That's just how it's going to go. It's exactly what Chase just said. So I wonder about that. I think that'll be very interesting to watch. Cade versus Carey immediately. Assuming both of them are locked in, ready to go next year, that Cade's locked in, ready to go next year, I think that's going to be a very interesting, that 4 spot is going to be very interesting to watch.
Over under, game 7, we see Rick unleash Cade, Carey, and Felix on the court with one another.
Yeah, they'd get 50 rebounds.
I'll say under. Yeah. I'll say under.
I would also say under.
He's going to try it. If they're all on the roster, I'm throwing it out there. It may not be by game 7, but I think there will be a moment where Rick is like, maybe, and he's going to throw out Cade, Carey, and Felix. I know he's like the defense, the upside, the rebounding, the toughness. Like he's going to try it. He's going to see what the numbers say.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a situation like at Missouri 2 years ago when Tennessee was just dreadful against that Missouri team, and they could not score. And he's like, all right, we're playing Jonas and Tobey. Let's just rebound and try to score second chance points. And it worked. And then Dalton got going as he typically did that year, and Tennessee ended up winning relatively easily. But I think the thing, kind of, because I think you were alluding to it a little bit, Chase, of like trying to keep everybody happy. And look, that's a concern for sure. I don't mean to say that it's not. I just think there's also an element that's like, man, even if you didn't take Carey, there's no guarantee you're going to keep those guys happy. There's no guarantee that one of those guys isn't going to transfer after next year. So who cares is maybe a little too dramatic, but it's like, this is going to be a problem. This is going to be a concern anyway. So I'm not going to keep that from, taking a player that I think can help the team. And I think there's an element to that with it. To me, the big X factor with Carey is just what can he do shooting the ball? You said it, Ethan. I think he made 9 threes last year at like a 24% clip. He banked into it those threes. But look, take this for a grain of salt. But Carey, in my conversation with him, said that Rick, said he kind of likes his shot. He thinks he just needs to tweak a few things and it'll be pretty good. The comparison I've been making, the perfect world, and this is probably a little too perfect of a world, but what Thomas Howe gives Florida, I think, is what like perfect world Jaylen Carey gives Tennessee next year. Like 9 points, 6.5 rebounds. I think Howe entering tonight has made like 35 threes on the season, like a 34% clip. The 3-point shooting, I have a hard time thinking Carey's going to get that good, but if Carey can make 30 threes at a 32% clip, then I think there's some of the spacing concerns, which to me was almost my bigger question when I saw them add Carey was what does this mean for spacing offensively? I think that would mitigate a lot of those concerns. So that's, to me, and I think it matters for Cade too, if he can become a guy that can shoot some threes and make defenses respect him at least a little bit from the perimeter. Those are two big offseason questions I'll be tracking for Tennessee, and I'm going to be curious to see because I think that's going to change the potential of the offense a good deal.
Ryan, speaking of Jacoby Gillespie here, why and why not will Gillespie be a bigger portal addition for Tennessee than Chaz Lanier this past year?
Yeah, this was a good question. I think the only reason why not would just be like Tennessee's not nearly as good, so it doesn't feel as important. Tennessee is a 6 or 7 seed, and they get bounced in the round of 32 or the first round. So you're like, okay, maybe could have still made the tournament if we'd gotten somebody else instead of Gillespie, and you didn't really make a deep run, so who cares? Where if Chaz Lanier wasn't on this past year's team, they're definitely not making it to the Elite Eight. They're probably not making it to the second weekend, if we're being honest about it. So I think that would be the reason for why not. But the reason for why is just a lot bigger because I think he's so necessary. He's so needed. And I think Chaz, he went to Jerry West Award, so certainly he silenced any questions. But, he's going for North Florida. So there was an element of what does this look like? I think, Lanier, from a statistical standpoint, I think exceeded what Tennessee's expectations were for him when they got him. Jacoby is a much more known commodity. He's a guy that averaged 15 points in the Big Ten. He was third team All Big Ten. I think the best point guard or one of the best point guards in the country was in the Big Ten. So, you talk about a guy who's ahead of him. He's a guy that I don't think would be surprising at all. I don't even think he has to make a huge jump forward to potentially be a first-team All-SEC guy. And then you're also talking about a guy that's playing in his second year at this level. And how many – just think about it. Jordan Gainey's the answer for Tennessee, and this is going to be a little bit different because he's in a new system, and it's not going to be as seamless. But I love when you get a transfer for 2 years, especially when they're coming from a lower level, because it seems like in that second year, those guys make a really big jump. Janai Broome was a big example of that. Jordan Gainey was a big example of that. So when you talk about that and how good Gillespie already was in year one making that jump, and again, it's not going to be as seamless. He's learning a new offense. He's learning new teammates, so he might have one beside him that he's pretty familiar with, and that would probably help. But you think about, man, if there's another level here, you're talking about a guy that can contend to be an All-American on a roster that badly needs a lead guard. So I landed thinking it's a bigger pickup just for what this team needs. But at the same time, Chaz Lanier, as I said, won the Jerry West Award, and it was a big part of Tennessee getting to the Elite Eight. So it's a very, very high mark that Gillespie will be chasing.
Yeah, I'm curious how this all goes ultimately because you alluded to. Are we looking at 3 transfer starters at both 2 guards and then small forward spot? Are we going to assume it's 3 transfers there?
I think it's going to be 3 or 4 newcomer starters at least.
Okay. I because like that's the other like just kind of like thing that's kind of buried here even is that like Gillespie talked about going to get Rodney am I saying that?
Rodney Rice.
Rodney Rice. I second guess myself for a second. And Nate Ament, who we just kind of like moved on. Like I don't know if that's gonna get real. Who knows? But he's back. It's like Ryan. Like yeah, he's back. Like we just all moved on. And it's just, I mean, you bring Ament back, and it's you bring Ament back into the equation. It's like it's like from Arrested Development. Oh, we got a stew going.
We got a stew going.
You bring in Ament, Gillespie, and Rice.
Bone.
Yeah, like if you have that combination, that's a great combination, man. Look, we're getting ahead of ourselves if that actually does end up happening. Yes, Ryan.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna. I was gonna let you finish your point, but I think I was just gonna add on to that. I think ideal roster building for Tennessee right now is you get one of Nate Ament and Elijah Freeman, and you have those guys that are more 3 guys with their skill set, but have the size that can play some 4, and then you have a lot of versatility. Then you do have a stretch 4 option, and you can play a little bit of small ball. You do that. Obviously, Ament would be a whole nother level when you look at his talent, and Freeman, much more of an unknown. But Tennessee gets one of those guys to go with either Rice or another good player in the backcourt, and I think all of a sudden you got a really exciting roster on your hands.
Yeah, I'm very, very curious about how this goes. Ethan, your next perfect addition for Tennessee this cycle is who?
Yeah, it's interesting. Ryan just kind of brought it up a little bit. I would go whoever Barnes and company can get in the door between Ament and Elijah Freeman, because I think they're very similar players. Obviously, as we've said, Ament's kind of rocketed back into things. I think he had even set a commitment date, if I'm not mistaken.
He was going to commit at the McDonald's All-American game last week.
Yeah, and he went back on that. So I don't know if that has something to do. Obviously, Louisville was a major player there. I don't know if that has to do with how they're kind of constructing their roster right now, or obviously
he
Jacoby
couldn't start there now, right? With them adding McNeely and company, like he probably wouldn't. I mean, would he be a stretch 4 there?
It's weird because they added 3 players.
He's starting wherever he's going. He's going to be a starting lineup. I can promise you that
for sure. He's getting the big bucks, and and obviously that's what Jacoby Gillespie said. Like first thing when he got here, he said Nate Ament and Rodney Rice. Those are the 2 guys that I'm going after, and I would love both of those additions. Rice because of the chemistry that he's already built with Gillespie. You don't have to teach that. They can play the 2-man game all they want right there, and they did several times at Maryland, and it got them all the way to the Sweet 16. Until they run into a Florida team that is playing for a national championship tonight. So I think Rice would be an incredibly fun addition. I think either of Freeman or Ament gets you, like Ryan said, that versatility to where you can play a little bit at the 4 if it's absolutely necessary. But more than anything, you can drive at the basket. You got the shooting ability at 6'8", 6'9" from the outside, obviously 6'9" with Ament. And then, I mean, Freeman is – and the other part of it too that I think is a little interesting is obviously both of them would be making quite a jump. You're going to the highest level of competition in college basketball at the moment, and Freeman was playing at Lincoln Memorial University last season, and Ament was playing high schoolers. So obviously there's nothing 100% guaranteed there, but they're both really talented players who are getting NBA buzz. So either of those, that'd be a lot of fun.
So what are we looking at years-wise? So Rice is what? Is he a senior like Gillespie or no?
Junior, if I'm not mistaken. I can look it up real quick.
I think he may be redshirted. He's played 2 years. I think he may be redshirted.
So you could have Rice for a couple of years. You could have Rice potentially at least a season longer than Gillespie.
2 years. He's got 2 years.
Least, yeah, it's at least 2. I guess it's 2 years either way, whether you get the 5th year or not for Rice. Okay. Whereas Gillespie's 1 or 2, depending on the year.
You know what? Ryan's right. At Virginia Tech, he only played like 8 games, so he probably wouldn't get counted for that. So.
Yeah, I think he was hurt. Maybe
that's potentially he. And what is Freeman? What would Freeman have?
He would. I mean, he would have 3, but I think when Ethan just said, the buzz he has with the NBA, I'm not sure he's going to be around for the entirety.
He's just an athletic freak, so he would be going to the NBA.
So Rice was class of 22, so he would have minimum 2, maybe 3 if year gets passed.
So you can only have one. Let's do an impromptu poll here. If you can only have one of the 2 for this year, who do you have? Freeman or Ament? Ethan, you first, and Ryan.
That is a seriously tough question. I've seen a lot of good stuff from Freeman, but it's hard to go against Ament because he's just such. I think he's even more so of an athlete than Freeman is, and he's. I'm not going to say he's proven by any means, but it just scares me going D2 to D1, just seeing what all would. I guess you're talking the same way when you're going from high school to D1 as well. So either way, there'd be a little bit of a uncertainty factor in it. But I think you ask me the question right now, I'd probably go Ament, but it's close. They're both really good players.
What about you, Ryan?
Ament, no doubt for me.
No doubts.
No doubt.
Yeah,
That's
doubts.
surprising.
Could they
really
still be
think
a really
they're
good team with
players.
Freeman? If it was
Yes.
Freeman, like would they still be?
Yeah.
Like how much of a difference is it in terms of like pecking order in the SEC if they went Ament instead of Freeman?
Oh, I don't know. That's
They're
tough
really
question,
similar.
Chase.
Yeah,
Let's get in the weeds here, Ryan.
But my thing is just
Put your name on it, 7th or 6th.
The reason I say that with so much conviction is I know how much Rick Barnes likes Nate Ament. Like I don't know if there's been a high school prospect he's liked more in his time at Tennessee.
Interesting.
Than he likes him. I know he wants him badly. So just from that aspect is why I say that.
Do you have a prediction on where it goes?
I would still say I don't think Tennessee's going to get him. I think they're from last week, I think I might have said off air in our text chain, I thought there was a 0.001 chance they were going to get him. To now, I do think they're a real player. But I'm still a little bit.
What's the connection between Gillespie and Ament, by the way? How do they know each other?
I was wondering that too.
What's that?
What is the connection between Ament and Gillespie?
I have no idea the connection.
He might just really like him. He's a ball watcher, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Ament's from up in Virginia, so relatively near Maryland. Maybe he's seen him at some point. The connections that Tennessee has with Ament is, one, Troy Henderson was his point guard on his AAU team.
Mm-hmm.
And two, Ament's girlfriend, at least when he visited in January, his girlfriend was a freshman at Tennessee on the track team. I have no idea. I'm not TMZ. I don't know if they're still dating or not. But as of January, his girlfriend was at Tennessee.
Interesting. I'm just like Ryan has set Ethan and I up for this letdown of all letdowns when Ament still picks Louisville after all of this. But man.
I just said I don't think Tennessee's going to get him still.
No, you said at the beginning to just like throw us off the scent, and then you just spent all these connections talking about like here's all the different reasons that it wouldn't rule it out.
I think
it's just the Dumb and Dumber. So you're telling me there's a chance?
Yeah, no, it is Dumb and Dumber. I am telling you there's a chance.
I think it's very interesting that he called it off when Louisville was a big player.
Yeah.
And right after they get the transfers, and it's on April 1st at the McDonald's. I think that's interesting that he called it off. I don't know. It feels to me like there's some momentum there for sure.
No Kentucky. I will like as long as it's not Kentucky at this point, because that would just be like, no, can't be Kentucky.
In honor of Chase, this is a complete vibes take. Nobody in the know has told me this, but to me, it feels like this has altered a little bit from a Louisville Duke battle to a Duke Tennessee battle. That's kind of how it feels to me. Complete vibes. Could be off. Maybe he still goes to Louisville, but that's just the feel of it a bit to me from some of the.
It'd also be okay if like Abel popped out of nowhere and Tennessee just added Abel, who's just been off the radar, just casually mentioned on the side for the last several months since the coaching change in Miami, and then it's just like, oh, 5-star in the boat at the last minute, like no one knows, he just committed, like it was just out of nowhere. He's like, oh, here comes Abel.
They're throwing us all off and just going for birdies. It's not going to be Arizona. No, I don't actually know that. It's probably going to be Arizona.
It seems like Arizona. That's where.
Just give me one. I mean, Freeman would be okay though. I think it's also a great story. Like the LMU to Tennessee stuff angle is just a good story.
Yeah, I would be very happy.
That will never happen. Like I shouldn't say it will never happen again, but the odds of that happening again very slim. Like it's just a good story down the road. I don't know. That's a good story, and it'd be fun. He'd be a fan favorite and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I think that would be. Either way, it'd be fun. But we shall see. Ryan, Rodney Rice, when we look at that potential addition, like let's say you get Rodney Rice in the boat. Let's just say that happens. How many other transfers? We talked about Ament or Freeman. Like how many other transfers is Tennessee going to add here now that they have 2 in the boat? Maybe 3 with Freeman. And then you have Rice, that'd be 4. You have Brown. Like I know it's very fluid day in, day out, but like, what are we looking at numbers wise here for the in the portal for Tennessee?
I think ideally one of Freeman and Ament. If Tennessee doesn't get either of those guys, then it's a wing that, again, a guy at that spot, a wing that can play a little bit of stretch for. So obviously Ament wouldn't be a transfer, but we'll say him. I think it's a starting shooting guard, and I think it's a backup guard, whether that be a combo guard or a pure shooting guard. So I think it's 3 more. Is my take on things.
Ethan, is there someone in the portal right now, or someone that might enter the portal, but let's stick with portal right now, that's like a wild card of like, hey, I just like this dude's, he's a hooper, capital H, or just someone that I like watching him play college basketball that you're not certain would fit Barnes' style? Is there someone that like, it doesn't have to be linked to Barnes in Tennessee right now? Is there a name that you would like to see Tennessee go after here?
The reason I'm a little hesitant on this, and my answer is San Francisco's Mike Thomas. I think that dude is just a pure hooper. I watched a lot of him this season, sicko mode late night on like a Monday night or whatever. He's
before or after going to the LMU gym and grinding the Elijah Freeman tape.
If Freeman had come down anywhere near variable, I was going. Like I was looking around making sure, but he never came close enough to variable for me to
Sorry, Heritage. Got other plans.
Sorry, but I really like Malik Thomas. I'm not sure how he would fit, especially considering Tennessee's looking heavily into Rice. They're kind of similar players there. I have no idea if that would ever happen, but he's a first team all WCC guy. Had excellent outings against Memphis, Clemson, Gonzaga twice, St. Mary's. He's played them all and he gives them all buckets. He's really, really good. He gets to the rim really well. He draws a lot of fouls. He made more free throws last year than anybody on Tennessee attempted free throws. And he does all of it at a really high clip. He can score in the paint. He can score from beyond. He can score from 40 feet. He's kind of that type of player. So I think that'd be a lot of fun. I think it's a bit of a pipe dream. It's probably not happening, just how Tennessee's building their roster at the moment like that. At the moment right now, especially kind of with I feel like the emphasis being more on Rice and Ament and Freeman right now. And Thomas is a really good player. So we obviously they'd have to get kind of on their horse there and fight off a lot of high major schools, because I think he's going to be really good wherever he goes.
Ryan, do you have one too?
No, I really don't. The guy that it would have been, but he's committed, is Silas Demery at Georgia. I loved his game. I was a huge fan of him. Tennessee obviously recruited him kind of twice in high school. Though I don't think he was a take for them after they decommitted, or after he decommitted from USC. That's going to be a classic in like 2 years when he's a stud at UConn, like an All-American caliber player. And you're going to be like, oh yeah, he was going to USC, and then they got Bronny James, so he decided to get released from his NLI. Like, going to be a crazy trickle down effect of that one. But I love his game. I don't think Tennessee was ever involved there or anything, but no one else. And I mean, that's kind of the thing you're talking about. Like you just look at the needs and you look at where Tennessee's targets are. There's only so much money. Anybody that's actually really good, Tennessee's probably not going to have money for if they land some of or most of these targets they're going after right now.
So final thing on all this, and we'll talk baseball real quick here. Like, when do we think this is all going to wrap up by? Like, what is the timeline, right, for all of this?
Oh, I don't know. It's a couple more weeks. I mean, look, it went into late May last year before Chaz committed, and he was the last
Chaz
guy.
Late May?
Wow.
He was in SEC baseball tournament is when he committed.
Man,
unbelievable that he
got. But he
had
to back on it. He had to draft stuff too that prolonged it, so we didn't enter until late. So I don't think it'll go that late, but I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if there's still stuff in May. They're putting the roster together. I mean, I hope it's, no one wants it to go quicker than I do, because I'd prefer to be able to leave my house without my laptop at some point in the next month to 6 weeks, which I haven't done since the day the season ended. I'm out on the golf course with I posted Jacoby Gillespie from the golf course, from Island Point Golf Course. I talked to Jacoby Gillespie on the phone off of the 18th green at Island Point Golf Course. Back-to-back years, I've posted a commitment story. D-Stone, I posted at Island Point Golf Course last year. So I hope quickly, but we'll see.
That's why Ryan Schumpert's the best in the biz. Like, he's ready to go. He's always got the laptop. He's gonna air. Like, I mean, obviously you had to do no Wi-Fi there. You're going hotspot. You're going personal hotspot for the content. So it's elite stuff from you, Ryan Schumpert.
I appreciate it. Yeah, no, you gotta be ready this time of year. Yeah, someone can pop it any moment.
Yeah. Hopefully, good news.
Speaking of that, also, if anyone wants to go, well, I was going to leave this for the plug at the end. If anyone, Diamond Pass podcast, me and Jack Foster breaking down what we're about to talk about. It'll might not be quite as good as what we're about to do, but it'll be a little more extended. If you want some fun, Jaylen Carey committed in the last 3 minutes of that, so you can watch me scrambling on the video. I had a story written already, but to get that posted, so you'll have a live reaction of me scrambling. I was messaging Jack into private chat, and I was like, pause. And I was trying to string together because we were really close to the end, so I was trying to string together my final thought on the weekend as I was posting the story. So that probably wasn't the most coherent.
Fantastic stuff. That's what makes this the most electric career possible. Where else could you be having to scramble the last 3 minutes of a pod to jump to another written thing? Final thing here, as Ethan dives into Tennessee baseball here this weekend with college basketball ending tonight, so we'll have more from Ethan. I'm excited for Ethan's just diving in here. He's just diving in with an important series all of a sudden for Tennessee now, going to Oxford to take on the Rebels. But Ryan Schumpert, Friday, about as great of a game as it can go for Tennessee. They combined no-hitter for Liam Doyle and company to take down the Aggies, and you just expected Tennessee to just roll. And with weather on Sunday, they put together a doubleheader, and Tennessee proceeds to just get bludgeoned for 7 hours, just about. It was jarring. I think it'd be less jarring if it was a Saturday Sunday deal, but because it was back to back, you're just I don't think I've just seen anything like that from Tennessee. We've seen bits and pieces where Georgia last year was a stunner. We were like, what just happened? On I think it was a Friday night game that Georgia did that.
Yeah. Or it might have been Thursday, but it was game.
It was the first game of the series, if I remember correctly, right?
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
And Tennessee bounced back. Because I remember I got a lot of messages after Georgia did that back home where I was like, oh, what's going on in Knoxville? After that one. So thankfully, Tennessee righted the ship there in the second two games. But what happened on Saturday, Ryan Schumpert? And is there legitimate reasons to maybe not panic, but raise some alarm bells about where Tennessee baseball is at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, just to your point a minute ago about it being a doubleheader, I don't think it happens if it's doubleheader. Tennessee might lose both games.
Yeah.
Still, if they play Saturday, Sunday, that's certainly possible. But I just thought Tennessee did not respond very well to playing poorly, especially late in game one, because that game was tight for the first half of the game. And Tennessee played bad baseball when they lost. They played bad defense. So I think that aspect, you saw Tennessee not respond very well. I thought you saw some uncharacteristic at bats where Tennessee was chasing and over aggressive and trying to do too much. So that I don't think is overly concerning. Look, they need Gavin Keelan back. That raises the ceiling a lot. There's just not quite the depth of power in this lineup, and some of those young guys are going through what I said was going to happen. They're going through dealing with the SEC for the first time, and they're struggling, which isn't shocking. I don't think that worries me a ton. But because of that, you need the top of the lineup to be as good as possible so they can make up for it. I think what is a real concern and was a real concern before, but it just got exploited, was the pitching depth. Where really the last 2 weekends, Braden Krenzel saved Tennessee. Braden Krenzel saved Tennessee's pitching plan. And I like Braden Krenzel. I think he's closer to the guy we saw those 2 weeks than he is to the guy we saw in game 3 of the series on Saturday who got shelled. But I also don't think it's probably fair to be expecting him to throw 4+ innings of one run or shutout ball every weekend. I think Tennessee was maybe living on a little bit of borrowed time with that. So I think Tennessee needs to get Tanner Franklin back to throwing well. Which he did. His numbers don't look great because they left him in for that third inning and he struggled there, but he was really sharp through 2 innings. And then, AJ Russell's the guy that changes everything when you get him added to the mix. So I do think there is some pitching depth concerns. I think that's very legitimate. The The other stuff, I lean more to it was a bad day, and I don't think it's going to be something that's a huge deal for Tennessee.
Yeah, I think all that's fair. I think the pitching depth will settle out. I'm just not worried about Frank Anderson's pitching depth. Like, I think they're going to be fine there. Maybe a little bit of Snead where it's like kind of there's multiple games now. Snead kind of struggling. They really need him to get right in a hurry. I think Dylan Loy still fine. I think you look through it, it's like Krenzel, like you said. I'm just not really as worried. I mean, maybe like you're kind of worried about Binky at this point. There are certain
Binky not getting in the game this weekend was kind of like, well, you knew his stock was down, but to not get in the game.
Right. So we'll see on that front. But I mean, I think on they just need Gavin Keelan back in a major way. Like, I think that's one of those where Tennessee does not have the horsepower that they had in the lineup last year to withstand I think he's still leading in average, right? I think he was at like 420 something, if I remember correctly, before he went out.
I'm pretty sure he's still leading in average in OBP.
Yeah. And right behind him is Hunter Hensley, who's been unbelievable at 3-hole this year. And I think when you look at that, Hensley at 3, Curley at 1, and Gavin at 2, it just sets the tone where it's just like that is a really, really strong 1, 2, 3. And then obviously Fisher he has one home run just robbed in ridiculous fashion. That kind of set the stage for what the disaster that followed after the home run that blew back into right field that the right fielder made a great catch for the Aggies. But they need Keelan back. But it was something you and I talked about. I said a couple weeks ago where I'm like, the hamstring stuff is it's just tricky, and they could say he might be available. It's like, you got to be careful because, like, you saw with Kavaris Tears a couple years ago, right? Like, his was a hamstring thing, and I remember,
that's exactly what it was. That's a great point.
And that lingered, and I don't know. Like, the Tennessee needs Gavin Keelan in the lineup to get to where they want to go as they get further and further into the SEC calendar, because it's just a lot of unproven guys in the lineup right now, guys that I think are going to be really good players for Tennessee, like Manny Marin, Levi Clark's not really getting in because Dalton Bargo is hitting so well, but it's just, you want to be in a situation where you have that kind of big time bat who's going to be a first round guy to kind of balance this thing out, because they need Keelan back. Like, that's just, I don't know if that's going to happen. What do you guess as we wrap up here tonight, Ryan? Do you think Keelan's back in the lineup this weekend or no?
I don't know. I would guess no, I guess, but I don't say that with a whole lot of conviction.
Yeah. It's something to monitor, and we'll see what it looks like. But it's better to be safe than sorry and have him for the stretch run, ready to go. But when that was coming around, just the hamstring stuff a couple weeks ago, I'm like, that's not good. Like, this is not something that Tennessee needs, and this is something that could linger for a while. And I hope Keelan's back on the field sooner rather than later, because the Vols are going to need him. Ethan Snow, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at SaturdayDownSouth.com this week?
Yeah, so by the time you're listening to this, obviously the championship game will be over, but we'll have full coverage of Florida, win or lose, obviously on Tuesday and moving forward. And then I've kind of been tabbed as a Tennessee basketball writer for the next 2 or 3 weeks as the transfer portal kind of works itself out a little bit. So I'll be writing a little bit about that and doing my usual evergreen stuff. And then obviously our full team will have coverage of baseball and softball moving forward through June.
I love it. 5 seconds, your pick tonight. Let's see if you're clairvoyant, Ethan.
I think it's going to be Florida, but Houston it's going to be a good game. I think it'll be Florida. They're just too good.
Ryan Schumpert, what about you over at Rocky Top Insider, and then your pick tonight and your Masters pick here this week?
A lot of normal stuff. I mean, we talked about it. Tennessee basketball transfer portal. We'll be tracking all of that. Tennessee baseball this week, a big series, as you noted, at Ole Miss will be must-see TV on Friday night when Liam Doyle faces his old team. And then my personal favorite event of the year, the orange and white game Saturday. I'll be holding it down over at Neyland Stadium. Cougars tonight, Colin Morikawa this weekend in Augusta.
Colin Morikawa this weekend. Okay.
Yep.
I've seen some Sergio buzz of late.
I hope
Phil
Jordan
Mickelson
Spieth,
a
that's
good
my
buy.
guy.
Who?
Spieth.
Oh, Spieth would be great. I mean, it would be the 10-year anniversary, right? Was he 15?
Yeah, it would be 15
Yeah.
because it was 16 when he choked.
I'll be boring and
Jordan.
it'll be Scotty. I'll be boring.
Scotty's, yeah.
It's
Scotty would be the what?
Yeah.
Only Jack has won 3 of 4. What is it? 3. What is Jack's
It would be
record?
3 or 4 for Scotty if you want.
Yeah.
I don't know the stat though.
I think Jack is also the other one, and Jack is one of 3 to do back to back, and Scotty would join that group too. yeah, it's never a good idea to bet against Scotty Scheffler. Like, it's just never a good bet. Ethan Stone, Ryan Schumpert, always a pleasure, and I'll talk to y'all next week.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.